Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play The Messenger. In the last part we finished the Tower of Time, and now, this. Well, that's certainly a fresh, shiny new coat of paint, ain't it? I suppose we can call it a redefining moment. Get it? Because it's 16-bit now? Anyway. Welcome to the Cloud Ruins, and before I eventually talk about this level's own mechanics, obviously the game is now very different looking. We'll learn more about why this happened when we talk to the shopkeeper next, but I have to say all the music throughout the rest of the game is going to be very Genesis twangy. And while I'm not a big fan of Genesis twang to begin with, they pull it off excellently here. With that said, let's go talk to the shopkeeper so we can figure out what the hell is going on. What happened? I warped or something and everything looks different now. Hello? Okay, that is a really cool hat. Seriously, wow! Any idea what happened, though? Sorry, I just can't get over the hat. Alright. Can we talk about what's happening? Welcome to the Cloud Ruins, remnants of a civilization of giants that used to live in the sky. This place is beautiful, but the structures feel precarious. Yeah, bad place if you're afraid of heights. How high am I? You mean in my opinion? What? Oh, geographically. Well, you entered the Tower of Time at the top of the mountain, and then exited through the top of the tower. So I'd say fairly high. Enjoy the sights. So about what's going on here? What's the deal with everything looking so different? You know, I was wondering how you were going to deal with the implications of time travel. It seems ignorance really is bliss. Pardon? That moment in the Tower of Time? Yeah. It sent you to the future! Neat. Yes, precisely. Neat. Any stories to share? Of course, here's one for you. There once was a starving little boy who never missed a chance to help his fellow villagers. One day, after helping an old man carry a heavy bundle of wheat, he was offered a loaf of bread. Eat your fill, my boy, it is well deserved, he began, but if you feel like helping even more, there are two gnomes hiding in the forest who are even hungrier than you are. Now that boy was an empathetic one. His mind was made up instantly. After a short hike, he found the gnomes and split the bread between the two of them without even saving a bite for himself. Thank you, kind little boy, the gnomes beamed. It seems you have lifted our curse. Indeed, to punish them for their greed, a spirit had put them under a rather annoying spell. They were exiled to the forest carrying a magic little mill capable of producing anything its bearer desired. But the little mill's magic would only be activated once the gnomes were fed by a stranger acting out of selfless generosity. To starve while carrying a relic promising abundance, a cruel fate indeed. Now, you can imagine the little boy's surprise when he was given the magic item. Name something you want while turning the crank to the right, and the little mill will produce an endless stream of it, the gnomes explained. Turn it to the left and it'll stop. After creating a huge pile of food for the two gnomes, the young boy went back to his village to help the populace with his newfound powers. But as he grew in popularity, his older sister grew in jealousy. One night, she couldn't take it anymore and stole the little mill from her brother's bedside table along with two leftover pies from that afternoon's feast. Adding insult to injury, she left on the family's fishing boat to reach new lands, hoping to have her turn in the role of the popular purveyor. Once out at sea, she decided to try one of the pies, which to her taste were lacking a little something. It was time to try that little mill's magic, she reckoned. Give me salt, she said, turning the crank to the right. And salt she got. Heaps and heaps of it. Now, older sister had never bothered paying attention to how the mill could be stopped. Stop, little mill, stop, she shouted, first annoyed, then worried, and finally panicked. Salt soon overflowed the boat itself, sinking it under the weight. It is said that the sunken little mill is still operational to this day and is the reason why seawater is salty. The end. That was interesting, but it feels more like a kid story explaining things about the world that we know the actual reason for. Tough ground, huh? Why don't you tell me a story and I'll judge it. So you're looking for additional takeaways? How about this? Seeing how Big Sister's anger led to her demise, irritated people were henceforth referred to as salty. Oh, I got another one. Seeing how Big Sister's shortcomings as a little mill operator led to her demise, unqualified people were henceforth referred to as not being worth their salt. Hey, this is fun. You should go. I'll keep coming up with morals to do with salt. I could think of a couple of people who I could make a reference to in here that I play Smash Brothers with, but I won't. Alright, the Cloud Ruins. Its name, of course, is a pretty good signifier about what's going to be ahead of us. We're going to be dealing with a lot of bottomless pits, but the main gimmick of this place is done in 3 spurts. Because otherwise, the main platforming is more of what we've seen already, really. The little bubbles back from, I think that was the Catacombs, or was that Howling Grotto? I actually forget where that was first introduced already. And a lot more geysers for wind. In fact, there's a lot of vertical structure here. We're also going to have these little spike walls that pulsate in and out with their spikes. And you should get used to seeing those in certain areas moving forward because they're going to become fairly common. The timing for the spikes is usually rather generous as to when it's going to be coming out, and it's pretty telegraphed when it does because the sigil on the block starts to glow in sequence. But if you're not paying attention or you're taking things too slowly, you'll probably very easily take a hit. The one song I don't really like, as I mentioned though, in this new Genesis-y sound font, is the shop theme. Even though I love the shop theme as it is, I feel the Genesis-y twang just makes it a bit too harsh. But at the same time, I won't deny the melody is still catchy as all hell. These cloud siren things are weird enemies in that they move constantly in right angles. But they're more so obstacles to use for cloud stepping than anything else. They're seldom a threat attack-wise because they don't have a physical attack. And these are the spike blocks I was talking about, by the way, where you can see when they're charging up their spikes just based off the sigil. Like other spikes, though, I do believe they still do only 3 health, so you don't have to fear too much in that regard. Now, something I haven't exactly talked about with the shopkeeper's stories is that each of them actually do have an Easter egg somewhere in the game's areas. Namely, like a notable location of it. Like, there's a cutscene later on that if you look in the background through a window where there might be a lot of water, you can actually see that little mill. In a room towards the top of the glacial peak where there was a giant time crystal shard I was taking care of, I completely forgot to mention this then, too. You can actually see the coupled what? So, cool hat. Oh, you like that? Is that why you chose to wear your one as well? What? Well, you have the same hat. No, I got it first. Oh, is that what you're going to tell yourself? Fine. I did have the hat first and you were all over it. Right, yeah, all that happened, sure. It's true, though. Look, you can put your head in the sand all you want in an attempt to preserve your ego, but clearly it's not going to work on the person that was there when it all happened. Okay, fine. Jeez. Steal my style, like, don't you? God damn it. Before I go back to that topic I was going on, meet the main gimmick for the stage. There are 3 times where a dragon is going to chase us. It's a perilous platforming section because between the clouds is obviously bottomless pits, meaning instant death, but I honestly forget what happens if the dragon catches up to you. I want to say it's instant death, but I honestly cannot recall. Anytime I think I've died to this stage, or this portion of the stage, it's always been to bottomless pits. I don't think I may have died to the dragon once, but I still can't recall what happens with it. Still, you want to avoid that. Either way, going back to what I was saying. Yeah, each of the stories from the shopkeeper does show up throughout the game. For instance, the tea house thing he told us back in Autumn Hills. In the Ninja Village, there is a tea house that's implied to be that. And of course, there are many, many others. Essentially, every actual story the shopkeeper is told has one. But we're not going to be able to see those until later for reasons I'll talk about when we get to there. The only ones that don't have them are the ones where the shopkeeper essentially just tells us to screw off and doesn't give us an actual story, like Bamboo Creek and a couple others. I will say something that is very satisfying about the Cloud Ruins compared to some of the other levels is that there's a lot of opportunities just to go really quickly horizontally instead of vertically. Because there's just multiple sections where you just move upward, move horizontally across various lanterns, these weird cloud siren things. Just at such an incredible speed if you use your rope dart correctly that it feels really nice. The control doesn't really change into the shift to 16-bit, by the way. The only way it feels different is that your animations are smoother, making your control feel just a little bit smoother. Or at least, not floatier, floatier, smoother is just the word I'm looking for. Though that does remind me, there is one control issue I have with the Messenger I haven't really gone over yet. And that's that sometimes you can be a bit sticky around walls. sometimes you try to jump up and just keep on jumping a rope dart around. You just stick to the wall you don't want to. It happens very rarely, but it does happen. It's like the only control issue. And I think they're even aware of it to the point where it's made fun of in a dialogue line later on. There's also a lot of shops here in case you get a lot of time shards. I already bought most of the upgrades at this point, so I don't have much I can buy because I need to save up more for them. I think no, not 1,000. It's just several hundred all the same. This is probably the dragon section I died the most on my first playthrough, just because they start getting more and more precise with the platforming to the point where you need to stay on an upper path and you want to not die. But almost every single death happens around this point where you have to go over these platforms. And if you're not careful, it's very easy to also have them in one other place because you'll get impatient or anxious just due to the fact the dragon is about to bite you right on your butt, and you miss the jump. That's happened more times than I'd like to admit. Ha! I will say it's at this point in the game where, just due to our relatively maxed out arsenal, that progression starts to feel a lot smoother in terms of the levels. There's very few times moving forward where we're going to be in a minute for 20 minutes at a time plus. Barring cutscenes, of course, because cutscenes will extend it no matter what. For instance, I'm fairly certain, like, 3 to 4 minutes of the Glacial Peak episode 2 parts ago now was just talking to the shopkeeper because of their stories. And you know what? That's gonna happen a couple more times, to say the least. Also, I gotta say, they did the right kind of updates for the Messenger / the Ninja when it came to updating to the 16-bit graphical style. Because the 8-bit Ninja feels appropriate for what would be an NES game sprite. This feels more appropriate for what would be probably either a, not Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis, I'm thinking more 32X or PlayStation 2D sprite, and it works fantastically. The hat makes a good, nice visual indicator, and I like the new sword animations too. For instance, now we actually draw the sword out of the bottom of the sheath rather than the top. And God, I love that jumping animation. It's so buttery smooth. One thing I've never been able to tell with these dragon sections, by the way, is if the dragon is actively gaining on you throughout the entire race, or if it's just if you flub up your controls that it starts to gain on you. I could believe either, but I'm not sure which one it is. I'm inclined to believe it's the... I already forgot which one it was, whether it was the former or the latter, but the one where it's constantly gaining on you. But we know this room layout. Let's see what the boss is all about. Hey, I'm not sure what's up next, but the Prophet wanted me to repeat a line for you at this point in the adventure. Alright, let's hear it. Okay, I always wanted to try the voice. Check it out. And on this day, the messenger shall unwittingly make his lifesaver indebted to him. And that means... I'm not sure, but if all else fails, attack the fireballs. Alright. Fair enough. Let's see what we can do about this. And, of course, the boss fight is rather predictable. It's the dragon. You didn't see Corbolts despawn from the top left to me. No, you didn't. Alright, the boss's main attack is several different types of charges. Whenever it charges into the clouds, it destroys a part of them, so you need to try and attack it before it can do that to cause it to go into its little stun loop animation where it just kind of gets backed up and then back up again. After it does its main charge, it'll charge left to the right throughout the screen several times to try and hit you directly. But the big weakness is when it eventually spawns on either side of the screen with its fireballs. When you do that, if you do cloud steps off of the fireballs enough in order, you can hit the head directly, causing it to be stunned and leave it open for mass damage. Honestly, this boss is easier than quite a couple of the most recent ones. Partially because of the lower amount of targets, partially because there isn't just as much to do. But it is still a hard boss. The biggest threat here is that I swear there's an attack that he didn't do this fight. where the dragon will just go across a lot of the floor, leaving only one of the sides open to attack, or open to stand on. And what you're supposed to do in that case is just run to the opposite side, but it didn't do it during this fight. It did during the fight I cut out because I died, but I like to make sure I save time where I can, so I had to cut that out. If you can stun lock it properly, really, Kyle, properly, this fight isn't too bad. Though it's a bit hard to tell when it's charging its charge up when it's blinking this quickly. Good God. There we go. And that's the Cloud Ruins. Stage isn't too bad, though the visual shift might take some getting used to. What? Oh, you're blue now. No, we got a friend. I've been watching you for a long time, messenger. Who are you, anyway? Huh, so the disguise did fool you. It's a shame you freed my slave pet, but no matter. I'm now certain I can defeat you. You! Surprised. Time to pay for what you did to my people. Bold words coming from such an unprepared adventurer. The underworld awaits you, messenger. At last, the scroll will be ours. Watch your step now. Shit. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 8, we're going to hell. See you guys then.